Inner this week in the Italian campaign, brought to you by the Freedom for Italy Network, episode 55, the battle for San Fortunato Ridge and the capture of Rimini. By the 22nd of September 1944, the 5th Army's II Corps had broken through the Gothic line at the Futa and Giorgio passes and had advanced towards the Po River Valley. On its right, Britain's 13 Corps had captured the San Godonzo Pass through the northern Apennines, which was the route of the road to Imola. To the west, 4 Corps had pushed into the mountains north of Prato and along the coastal plain north of Pisa, and on the Adriatic front, the 8th Army's Canadian and 5 Corps had broken through the Gothic line and advanced more than 20 miles since the start of Operation Olive on the 26th of August. Five Corps, led by Britain's 46th and 56th Divisions, advanced beyond the Marano River. The 56th entered the southern territory of San Marino on the 17th of September 1944. Britain's 1st Armoured Division was advancing towards the Aouza River. On the right, the Canadian Corps with Britain's 4th Infantry Division and the 3rd Greek Mountain Brigade under command had come into contact with the Rimini line on the 15th of September. This ran 8 miles west and southwest from Rimini along a ridge overlooking the Aouza. On the 16th, the Greek Brigade made slow progress by the sea. It suffered heavy casualties in open flats surrounding the thickly mined Rimini airfield. The 1st Canadian Brigade, advancing in full view from San Martino Ridge, was subject to shelling and mortaring. The Royal Canadian Regiment edged forward to the northwest corner of the Rimini airfield. The 48th Highlanders reached a road junction half a mile southeast of San Martino. Supporting tanks of the 48th Royal Tank Regiment were smashed up by anti-tank fire. A fresh attack by the Seaforth Highlanders in the afternoon of the 16th of September failed to throw the Germans off the northern end of the ridge. That evening, the Royal Vendeus and the 48th Royal Tanks captured the spur, which projected to the southwest after a sharp fight against the 15th Panzer Grenadiers. They held off counterattacks until the night of the 17th of September. During the 16th, the Royal Canadian Dragoons reached the Fossa Rodella, a ditch a few yards north of the airfield. Shortly before midnight, the Seaforths launched their second attack of the day. They encountered murderous fire and had to withdraw. By the end of the 17th of September, the Royal Canadian Regiment had lost 74 officers and men, and the 48th Highlanders had lost 86 in total. The Seaforth losses on the 17th of September alone were 90, the highest figure since the battle for the Hitler Line on the 23rd of May. On the 4th Division front on the 17th of September, the 28th Brigade's attack on Cerasolo was successful, and the Frisone spur was taken that night. During the day, the Divisional Reconnaissance Regiment worked around it to the right and made contact with the 3rd Canadian Brigade advancing from the right. The 4th Division and the Canadians were now encountering the Rimini line, which extended from Le Gracier for just over 2 miles. Its anchor was San Fortunato on a ridge which rose to 470 feet above the surrounding country. A track that was in places between 20-foot banks ran the length of the ridge. A similar sunken track ran west to San Lorenzo in Monte on a spur jutting out towards the Marecchia River, the next water barrier. A mile southwest of San Fortunato, the ground had dropped to a low saddle. From the far side, Sant'Aquilina looked across the Ausa Valley to the Frisone Ridge. The Canadian objectives were along the main San Fortunato Ridge. It was shelled for 4 hours before daylight on the 17th of September. Immediately afterwards, artillery began firing in support of the 4th Division's assault on the left. At midnight on the 17th of September, the 4th Division crossed the Ausa and the Budriolo, which curved around Sant'Aquilina on 3 sides and was an obstacle for tanks. Anti-aircraft searchlights were used to light up the battlefield to assist the attack. On the left, the 12th Brigade, supported by the North Irish Horse, established a bridgehead half a mile deep. 10th Brigade advanced against Sant'Aquilina. It captured a bridge over the Budriolo, but was held up until 8 in the morning. Advance elements dug in with 2 tanks at the left end of the brigade's objective. By mid-morning, forward troops, however, were still short of the road running towards San Fortunato. An all-out assault on San Fortunato Ridge began at 5 o'clock in the morning of the 18th of September. Guns opened up in support of the 1st Division's attack to the Ausa. Smoke screens covered the approach of leading battalions, and smoke shells on the ridge guided bombers to their targets. The 1st Brigade crossed the open flats east of San Martino to give the impression that the main attack towards Rimini would go that way. But the real assault would be made with the 2nd Brigade on the right and the 3rd Brigade on the left. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the loyal Edmontons advanced to capture San Martino, but were repulsed and withdrew. They suffered 58 casualties, and only 1 of its supporting tanks was operational. 2 of its companies advanced to Belvedere. The next target of the 1st Canadian Division's attack was the embankment on the south side of the railway line between Rimini and San Marino. 2 companies of the Princess Patricia Light Infantry in 2 Brigade with tanks from the 145th Regiment advanced towards a point on the embankment about 1,000 yards northwest of the ruins of San Martino Church. By 10 o'clock in the morning, the Patricias were dug in 200 yards short of the railway and more than 3 hours behind schedule. The total known strength of the 2 companies involved was now only 60. In the 3rd Brigade, the Carleton and Yorks with a squadron of the 12th Royal Tanks had reached the railway embankment at several places by 8 o'clock in the morning. But the 1st Division's attack had been broken at San Martino. Its centre was in confusion along the railway and its left was stuck at the Ausa. The 4th British Division could do little but wait until nightfall, when the cover of darkness would allow it to assault the southern end of the San Fortunato Ridge from their foothold near Sant'Aquilina. The German 10th Army prepared to repulse a fresh attack by the Canadians. On San Fortunato Ridge, it had the 1st Battalion of the 1st Parachute Regiment. The rest of the feature was held by the 29th Panzer Grenadier Division, which had packed 7 battalions into the 2,000-yard front southwest from Covignano. The new attack began soon after midnight on the 18th of September. 2 companies from the 3rd Brigade crossed the Ausa, and a bridge over the river was built. At 4 o'clock in the morning of the 19th, the Hastings and Prince Edwards and the West Novas crossed the railway embankment. Their objectives were the Covignano and San Fortunato hamlets. At 6, both battalions were at the main Rimini to San Marino road, with 2 squadrons of the 48th Royal Tanks coming up in support. The attack on San Fortunato itself started at daylight, but as soon as the supporting bombing and barrage ceased, German defenders emerged from dugouts and began sweeping the hillside from concealed positions near the crest. Tanks and self-propelled guns checked the supporting armour. That evening, the West Novas withdrew to their start line, having suffered 63 casualties. The 2 reserve companies of the Hastings and Prince Edwards with British tanks came within 30 yards of the crest of the ridge, but were forced back. During the night of the 18th, a patrol of the 48th Highlanders of the 1st Brigade reported that San Martino had at last been evacuated by the Germans. On the 19th, the Highlanders advanced, while the Greeks followed the withdrawing Germans a mile and a half north of Rimini airfield. That evening, the Edmontons and Seaforths of 2nd Brigade infiltrated over the southern knolls of the ridge to seize the outlying spurs of San Lorenzo in Monte and Le Grazie. Once the infiltration was completed, supporting tanks of the 145th Regiment were called forward. By 6 o'clock the next morning, the Seaforths were fighting for Le Grazie and attacking the Cookstown crossroads, 500 yards northeast of Covignano. The Hastings and Prince Edwards came forward to help. Cookstown and Covignano were cleared by midday. The simultaneous 3rd Brigade attack was equally successful. Villa Belvedere, the most prominent building on the ridge, was taken before midnight on the 19th, and the West Novas cleared the nearby Palazzo Paradiso shortly before noon on the 20th and turned right towards San Fortunato. On the afternoon of the 20th of September, the remnants of the 29th Panzer Grenadier Division retreated from San Lorenzo in Monte. At 1:30 p.m., the Princess Patricia Light Infantry passed through the Edmontons, supported by a squadron of the 48th Royal Tanks, and headed for the Marecchia River. At a crossroads less than a mile from the river, a group of Germans made a stand with Tiger tanks. The Patricians approached, but were driven back. This enabled the German main body to cross the Marecchia under cover of a sudden rainstorm that threatened to turn the bed of the river into an obstacle. The Patricians bypassed the rear guard and reached the river road by 5 o'clock on the morning of the 21st. A company crossed the Marecchia soon before 10 o'clock in the morning. By noon, the whole battalion was on the north bank, and the Patricians cut the Via Emilia and spent the rest of the day enlarging their bridgehead. By mid-morning on the 21st of September, the 48th Highlanders of Canada's 1st Brigade had patrols at the Marecchia and attacked that evening across the river. They linked up with the Patricians on the north bank. The relieving 2nd New Zealand Division sent a company to join the Canadians in a successful dawn attack on a German rearguard north of the river. The capture of San Fortunato Ridge made Rimini untenable. Early on the 21st of September, a Greek patrol reached the city's southern outskirts and found all bridges over the Oza River demolished or badly damaged. The 2nd Greek Battalion reached the main square first, and by 8 o'clock the Greek flag was flying over the town hall. Rimini had been heavily damaged by Allied bombing and shellfire, and more than 1,000 citizens had been killed. 75% of the city's buildings, many of them famous historic monuments, had been demolished or damaged beyond repair. On the 8th Army's left, Britain's 56th Division in 5 Corps had created a bridgehead north of the Auza on the 18th of September. With the fall of Rimini, the way was open for 5 Corps to cross the Marecchia River. By this time, the 4th Indian and the 46th British Divisions had finished clearing German forces from the territory of San Marino, which, on the 23rd of September, cast aside its neutrality and declared war on Germany. The attack against the Gothic line had been generally successful, and the 5th and 8th Armies were poised to enter the valley of the River Po. But the cost had been high. The 8th Army had suffered 14,000 casualties and lost 210 tanks since the start of Operation Olive on the 26th of August. The 1st Armoured Division was to be dissolved due to the lack of reinforcements, and every British infantry battalion in Italy was reduced to 3 rifle companies with a total strength of just 700 men.